Hi, welcome to Scrum tutorial from Simplilearn. I am CMR Chandra MR, a professional consultant and coach who is certified Scrum Master, PMP, Prince 2 practitioner, ITL 4 managing professional, DevOps and COVID 5. As part of this tutorial, we are going to understand the basic understanding requirements of Scrum, the Agile methodology. So let us look at a problem scenario. What was there in the absence of adoption of Agile in any given environment? So in the given scenario, there is a problem expressed. So we have a problem. Our consumer doesn't like our product. We will have to make changes immediately. So now, as usual, any manager would respond. The manager says, make the changes. So because it's always the changes or anything what we deliver is in the consumer's interest. So keeping consumers' interest in mind, the value which needs to be created for customers, any changes required to be done in any of our projects involving that consumers and customer, we may require to do the change. So but what is the problem here to do the change? So we can't. We already have started work on last batch. The waterfall model we follow doesn't let changes to be made midway through the process. So is it mean the waterfall model never allows the changes to happen? That is not true 100%. Waterfall model allows us to make changes, but it doesn't allows us to make the changes quickly. So whenever there is a change, it requires a lot of effort. It requires changes in documentation. It asks for the changes in various different implementations which is already done, which is executed already. And then a lot of efforts are involved, which is time consuming. And also it involves more cost. Now, how do we make that change which is required to the customer, and at the same time we don't have any specific additional effort which are required? So these efforts, whatever is being put, is acceptable to both the parties, both the stakeholders, that is the project organization as well as the customer. So how do we make it happen quickly as well? That is very important for us. So we should have used the agile methodologies. So meaning agile methodology helps us to do this. So one of the agile methodologies which we are going to look at as part of this tutorial is Scrum. So let us see how Scrum is going to help the scenario. So scenario of changes which are coming up more frequently, right? Right, so before that, let us understand what is the meaning of agile. What is the meaning of agile? What it means and why should we adopt agile? So agile means moving faster, being flexible, responding to the changes. Now, agile is a set of methods and practices that focuses on iterative development. Why iterative? In each iterations, agile methodologies helps us to create a working piece of the software product, which will help us to make quick corrections to that software piece. This is not a whole product, it is part of that bigger product. So requirements and solutions are obtained thanks to self-organizing cross-functional teams collaborating. So when we say cross-functional team, self-organizing team, so these are the teams which are 7 plus or minus 2, the size of the team what I'm speaking about, who basically have various different skills. Each of the team members will have various different skills and they complement to it. I think today the DevOps is speaking about this cross-functional team owning everything as a single team. Some of the organizations has already demonstrated their DevOps capabilities by having this approach, like having self-organizing and cross-functional team, having an accountability for the entire product, the particular piece of the product module what they have created. So this helps in improving accountability and also ensures better visibility of the product what is being created and delivered. So further, let us look at the advantages of using Agile. So what it gives to us, how it helps. So now the organization who follows the Agile methodologies, so we can see that projects follow a predefined schedule and have a predictable cost. So schedules are seen, but wherever there is a changes required, wherever there is a directions need to be changed in terms of making necessary changes to adopt to the required scenario, the change scenario, Agile helps us. It gives that flexibility. So clients have visibility of each phase of project. So it is very essential whosoever adopts the Agile methodology, the active involvement of customer has to be ensured. So they are actively involved. So customers or clients actively involved in the sense they know it, what is happening, what they are getting, they know. They are acknowledging it by giving the feedbacks every now and then so that there is no surprise to them at the end, which used to happen during waterfall approaches. Then greater interaction between project, team and the project means there needs to be collaboration. Agile emphasizes on having the collaboration. So Scrum in specific have something called daily Scrum, where 15 minutes meeting, where entire Scrum team should come in, sit together, self-organizing team as well as all that Agile team has to come together, express what they have completed before the last daily Scrum meeting, and what is pending, why is it pending, and what is that they're going to do before the next meeting. So all these are expressed. This will help the team as well as the Scrum Master as well as the product owner, the visibility into what is complete, what needs to be completed, and this will help project manager or Scrum Master to provide the necessary inputs, better visibility to the customers and stakeholders as well. Product output is predictable and can sometimes happen earlier than expected. So now initially, as we know, so the visibility of anything what we do will be very less. So now as we discuss more and more, as we brainstorm more and more, the visibility into it will become more. Then what would happen in future, the ability to predict will also become easier. And this doesn't happen only with the project team, it also happens with customers and every stakeholders who are involved in the project. So next, high quality development, testing and collaboration is ensured since the project is broken down. So now each iterations, each module, each piece of software which is being created are tested regularly and feedbacks are obtained from the user as well. Active involvement of user are ensured so that they are acknowledging it. So the what customer needs are given. So it is not that I discover something which I did not need. I'm seeing it. I told something, I'm getting something. That scenario is eliminated. Then the product backlog can be refined and reprioritized. So since we move iteration wise, depending on the change scenario, depending on the directions changes, we can keep reordering or reprioritizing our product backlog. What needs to be created first? If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 item, I can make it as 3, 4, 1, 2, 5. So depending on the change scenario, whenever it needs to be executed, it is a bit flexible and easy to do. Then teams can maximize project value since clients can provide project priority. So as we know, the visibility also increases to the consumer as well as all the stakeholders. They will also express what is that value they have seen from this. And this will also help in making a decision, should we continue with this project or should we not? So better visibility, better decision making, better value realization. The needs of the customer can be focused on increasing the value delivered. So as customer gives the feedback, as that visibility increases, then a customer is getting that value and then expressing what is the changes, what is that additionally they may require here, how can make it better. So these interactions can happen. So customer can be focused on increasing the value delivery. So in fact, I think earlier we used to speak about time to market. Today we are speaking about time to value, which means how quickly the consumers, the users or customers realizes the value. Is that benefit realized? So that's what the more and more discussion which is happening, which requires closer collaboration with consumers and their feedbacks, their experiences with the products or services which are being used by them. It is very essential to understand. So then various different methodologies what we have in Agile, we can speak about Scrum, Kanban, Extreme Programming, that is XP, Lean methodologies, the Crystal. So now in this video tutorial, we are actually focusing on Scrum. So let us understand what is this Scrum is all about, right? So before we go and understand what is the Scrum itself, so let us look at the history of Scrum, where it started, how it started. So right down the line during 1986, the name Scrum is first introduced by the management experts Yukujiro Nonaka and Hirotaka Takuchi. So Japanese. So now this terminology was introduced, but later in 1995, Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schubert creates the early version of what would become the agile methodologies. So now earlier 1995, so need for agile was sensed and it was spoken about. I mean, why do we need agile methodologies in future, what would be the future organization which would look like. So that would trigger in terms of what kind of approaches we may require to have. So further 2001, the Agile Alliance is founded, and first look on Scrum, the agile software development with Scrum, is published. So then further down the line, 2002, the Scrum Alliance is founded by Weber and certifications are added. Then later 2006, the Scrum Inc. is created. The certified Scrum courses are taught. So people started getting certified on Scrum. Then later 2009, scrum.org is created, which offers the professionals Scrum series of certifications. Then 2010, the first Scrum guide is published, so which made available to everyone. So from then I think the more and more people start adopting Scrum methodologies. Now interesting part is the journey started from 1980s till 2010, various changes which has happened to this particular methodology. But one thing we should keep in mind is same 20 years back or 15, 20 years back if we go, the need for agile was not seen. So it was spoken, but need for agile was not spoken much. But today we are speaking about it more and more. The reason is, I think, the change in the market condition, the increase in the competition, the need of responding to the change which is asked by the consumers or the market variations has become more and more important for organizations and service providers. If they don't respond to the change, they may lose out in the competition. So their survival is at stake. So it is very essential for them to understand these dynamics and respond to those scenarios quickly. So that's where the adoption of Agile, the benefit of adopting Agile were realized and Scrum become popular. So what is Scrum? So let us look at that. So now Scrum is a framework that enables teams to work together. Means collaboration is very important while we become agile. So with Scrum team, one can see and experience. So learning from experiences happens. So those are captured. Self-organize working on problems. So they work together. They discuss, brainstorm, reflect on their victories. Means any achievements has to be celebrated, acknowledged, quick wins recognized, and their losses to improve. So wherever the things doesn't go good, necessary corrections has to be done. I think Scrum approach would help in terms of doing it quicker, better. Then some of the benefits using Scrum would look like team can provide project deliverables and in an efficient manner. So in time, we are completing all the features and functionality. So the entire model, the methodology, what is there, it helps in accomplishing those. Then further, time and money are used efficiently. So time is very important. Giving results in a mentioned schedule is very important. Ensuring results are coming up effectively is important, efficiently, the performance of that products. Now since we are creating those small piece, working piece in every iterations, so that experience of using that would also be there and quick feedbacks will come back, so that time and money is saved and we are doing in time. So projects are divided into smaller units called sprint. So the iterations, what I was speaking about, the quick iterations of activities which happens during the adoption of Scrum, when organization adopt the Scrum methodology. So it is called a sprint. It's a time boxed iterations which will have a subset of product backlog taken as a sprint backlog, and those users stories and epics are delivered as part of that sprint, and then those are reviewed on a daily basis as part of daily Scrum meeting. And also we have other meetings which will happen when we go and look at Scrum methodology, how this happens. I think we'll get better visibility. Work best for fast moving projects. Now whenever we need to respond quickly, whenever we want to move faster, now remember, when we say moving faster means it doesn't mean that we can allow any defects to happen, we can ignore something, we cannot do that. We need to ensure everything is taken care. At the same time, all those results what are created has to be acknowledged, right? Confirm, yes, it is defect free. So all those which is supposed to be addressed are taken care, and things are moving faster and better, and the results are according to what was actually expressed as a requirement. It is fulfilling those. Then Scrum meetings provide the team great visibility. Since there is a daily Scrum meeting which keeps happening, People speaks about what they have done from the previous daily scrum, what is that they have accepted they will complete, and what is complete. Is everything is complete or something is pending? If it is pending, why is that pending? And what is that you are going to do further before the next daily scrum meeting? So these are discussed, understood, so that there's a quick 15 minutes meeting which gives the insight. And further, wherever there is a dependency, deviations which occurs, further maybe Scrum Master sit with them separately to understand that in detail. So daily Scrum meetings give the quick insights so that it increases the visibility, what is happening on ground. Constantly involves feedback from clients and customers. As I mentioned earlier while discussing about Agile, active involvement of customer is very essential. So customer should give the feedbacks whenever that working piece of the application or a product is given. So only then whether the product or that module what is created is having that features and functionality which helps in providing necessary requirement fulfillment, is that happening or not. Then making changes based on feedback are very easy because everyone is informed and they are aware of what is being changed and what needs to be changed. Then individual efforts of the team members are given focus. Yes, individual efforts is essential. At the same time, each team member cross skills. We call it a self-organizing team, as I was mentioning earlier. So each team member will have a different skills, different capabilities, and also cross skilling within the team is encouraged, so that the ownership on individuals deliverables and team as a whole working together to deliver some features functionality can also be accomplished, right? Then Scrum team involves product owner, Scrum Master, and then Scrum Team. So each of these are different roles having their own objectives to accomplish with the specific directions, and each of these cannot be merged. Like for example, the roles and responsibilities of product owner cannot be given to single individual who is a Scrum Master. So both the roles cannot be given a single individual because it conflicts the objectives of both the roles. So thinking about putting this, one of the team member becoming Scrum Master or product owner, thinking in that angle is also something which will not work, which will not give the required results. So now what are these roles? What are the responsibilities? Where is the focus of each of the roles? So let us discuss on that. Now when it comes to product owner, so the product owner is primarily responsible for maximizing the ROI by determining the product features, prioritizing it into a list, what needs to be focused on for the next sprint, and constantly reprioritizing and refining it. So the key points what we need to see here is, so one is determining the product features, maximizing the ROI, the second one, and then reprioritizing and refining the product backlog. Now why is that needs to be done? So maximizing ROI in the sense, obviously product owner should closely work with the business and have an insight towards what is that business require, what is that customer require, how it helps customer to accomplish that result, so that it helps the justifying that investment what they're doing with the product's features and functionalities. Then speaking about reprioritizing and refining it, it depends on what features needs to be delivered in what order. So there is already an order which is defined. So based on the change scenario, you can reorder it, and product owner has that ownership and responsibility. So the entire focus is on ensuring the right product backlog, prioritizing it, and also adding that user stories and epics into product backlog, depending on what makes sense to the business. So the Scrum Master, the next role, helps teams learn and apply Scrum to obtain business value. Means Scrum Master closely works with the team. So he or she helps remove impediments. What is impediments? Something which stops to move forward, something which doesn't allow to deliver things the way it is required, something which stops, right? So that needs to be eliminated. That needs to be understood. What are the impediments? So when we say impediments, what are the impediments we can think of? The skills and capabilities of the team. That is one thing. Maybe the testing environment, maybe a process. So many things comes as a bottleneck or impediments which stops things to move smoother forward. So Scrum Master should work on it, identify that, and support team or guide team to overcome those. So protects them from interfaces that helps the team to adopt agile practices. So encouraging team to adopt agile practices and ensuring they demonstrate it. and provides the required value as it's move forwards. So since Scrum Master focuses one side in terms of making Scrum team to work, whereas product owner is looking at the entire product backlog and working more closely with the business. So they need to have a good handshake to ensure things go well. But these two roles cannot be merged because since it has a two different angles and two different dynamics, so spending time accomplishing both the things may become very challenging and conflicting. And prioritizing will also be difficult. Then Scrum team is a collection of all the individuals who work together to deliver the requirements of the stakeholders. So self-organizing team, what I was mentioning, what we were discussing earlier. So these teams comes together, each of the team member will have various different capabilities. So they contribute at the individual level and as a team as a whole complement or contribute towards ultimate output and outcome and value what they need to create. And this team should have a clear understanding about the deliverable what is being done. So is that deliverable what features and functionality what they're thinking, is that going to create that value ultimately what is need to be achieved, the requirements fulfillment which needs to be happen to the customers. So they need to have that understanding, the direction should be clear to the team. So there are certain artifacts to look at when it comes to Scrum, so let us look at that. So now we speak about the artifacts, which are the components of the Scrum process that can improve transparency and understanding of the work. So there are three artifacts mainly, which we call it as product backlog, sprint backlog, then product increment. So let us see what is this one by one. So when I say product backlog, so it consists of list of new features, changes to be made to existing features, the bug fixes, changes to the infrastructure and several other activities that the team needs to deliver to ensure a particular outcome. So this list of product backlogs comes with required features and functionalities what needs to be delivered. So the prioritization of this has to happen in what order what needs to be delivered. So the product backlog is the full list which needs to be delivered as part of this project. And as the project progresses, a lot of new backlog item would be added to the product backlog as the dynamics of the particular scenarios keeps changing. So keeps adding, reprioritizing additional items to the backlogs are added depending on what are those dynamics. So further looking at a sprint backlog, so sprint refers to that short period of iterations, right? So which team aims to get a given amount of work done. So it helps teams deliver working software in a frequent manner. So sprint could be between 1 to 4 weeks long, depending on what is that deliverable is. So sprint backlog is a subset of product backlog. So that prioritized item, what is taken into sprint, which is a time boxed iterations. The sprint backlog contains the task the team aims to complete to satisfy the sprint goal. So what is that sprint goal? So each of those iterations, the time boxed iterations, will have a specific objective to accomplish. So the sprint goal is the objective decided for the sprint as an outcome of negotiation between the product owner and the team. So what can be delivered, how long it takes to deliver. So when it has to be delivered, the target may be given by product owner, but is it possible, feasible to complete it? There is some negotiation which happens there. So they decide, they agree, yes, we can do it, we cannot do it. If at all we can do it, what is that it takes in terms of effort, time and cost. So everything is decided, discussed. So that objective of that particular iterations is agreed upon. So once it is agreed, I think a team should first identify the tasks from the product backlog that need to be delivered to achieve the goal. So these tasks are then added to sprint backlog. So there should be an agreement between both. And once it is added, once it is agreed as part of that sprint, the deliverable, the output of the sprint would be the one which needs to be completed as part of it, the objectives, the goal, the results, which is specific working software. Then product increment. So this refers to the combination of all product backlog tasks completed in the sprint and the value of the increment of previous sprints. Now, when we speak about lean, lean speaks about elimination of waste. It speaks about value streams. Now, in each of the sprints, as we have a working software being delivered, now each of these pieces should keep complementing to the what is the one which is already delivered and what is being delivered in future. So keeping that in mind, every deliverable will be implemented or configured in such a way that there is no specific bottlenecks, there is no specific constraints which arises. So these needs to be kept in mind, which requires the entire visibility into what is that ultimate objective we are going to accomplish. So in this product increment, all those combination of the product backlogs task which is being done should keep this in mind. Team should be very clear about it. So in the first sprint I delivered something, in the sprint 2 I delivered something, but I cannot integrate them. They cannot work together. It will lead into the further issues and then complications. That should not happen. So when we say agile, it's about moving faster, fine. So responding to change, fine, but that should not lead towards further complexity. It should make things simpler, smoother. So Scrum is stressing on that part. So an increment refers to inspectable, usable work done at the end of the sprint. It represents a step towards overall goal or vision of the project, as I was mentioning. Then the outcome should be in usable condition, even if the product owner doesn't decide to release it. So it should be in usable condition. So two things we speak about. So one is release, other one is deployment. Now people usually get confused between release and deployment. So release about this part, what we're speaking about, product is usable. So it is released, product is usable. But only after deployment, user will have an access to use it. So that is the difference. Release makes that product usable, whereas deployment makes it available to the user to use. So this difference people should know. So release doesn't mean that it is already available for user to use. So this understanding of the difference should also be there so that one can understand what it means by release as well and what it means by deployment. That's why when we speak about DevOps, we keep speaking about CI/CD. In CI/CD, we speak about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. So in continuous delivery, you're speaking about release basically. So once it is released, it becomes usable. So once it is deployed, it is available for user to use. And that's about the Scrum artifacts. Now let us look at Scrum Framework, how that Scrum Framework looks like in entirety. So what are the components comes into picture. Already we spoke about the Scrum approach itself, what it is. Now we spoke about understanding artifacts. Then we spoke about roles in Scrum, the activities for each of the roles we understood. Now where do we see all of this when we look at a Scrum Framework? So that picture let us see. So when we say Scrum Framework, already we spoke about the product backlog. We can see that it is in the left side in the beginning. We have a sprint planning. So we spoke about sprint, the time box iterations, and from the product backlog, the items which is moving towards sprint to a specific sprint, what needs to be delivered, which become sprint backlog. Now the backlog items are taken and Scrum team work on it and does a daily Scrum meeting. And once the deliverables of that particular sprint happens, then there is a review on it. Then the increment is delivered, and at the same time that retrospective, what was planned versus what is delivered, that is checked. If you look at from sprint review, so you have a retrospective to check what is planned versus what is being delivered. At the same time, the review points will come and get updated to product backlog as well to the product owner. So product owner should be aware what is delivered, what is pending to be delivered, and that increment is further delivered. So these increments, what is delivered to production, what is deployed in the production, should have values, that integration which happens, both all the increments coming together to provide that fulfillment of the requirement as well as creating that value what is required. So product backlog is the first step of Scrum framework, is a set of list of tasks to successfully achieve the goals of the stakeholders. We discussed that while discussing on product backlog. So further sprint planning happens where the team determines the tasks from the product catalog they will work on and aim to deliver during the sprint. Now this is negotiated, understood, agreed, and then moves towards sprint to get delivered. Then sprint backlog are the tasks discussed during the sprint planning, means the previous step, and also during the script planning, and then added to the sprint backlog. Once it goes to the sprint backlog, as part of the time boxed iteration sprint, the deliverables should happen. Now Scrum team, the Scrum team, which is actually self-organizing team as we mentioned, maybe 5 to 10, 9 members of team working on the task in the sprint backlog, and they will also have a daily scrums where the team also discusses for 15 minutes on the events, where the team member synchronizes activities and plan what they aim to achieve in next 24 hours, what is accomplished against what is discussed in previous daily scrum, and then if at all any further discussions need to be done in the correction of those, that can be taken as a separate meeting, not as part of the daily scrum. So generally daily scrum meeting would be 15 minutes. It should not go more than that. It's an indicative time. So quicker updates to understand what is happening. Then the sprint review happens, where once the sprint is complete, so sprint review happens, which involves the team, the scrum master and product owner and stakeholders to understand what is being agreed upon and what is being delivered, so reviewed. Is that fulfilled in the entirety that is discussed? And then during this meeting, the team shows what they accomplished during the sprint. It allows time to ask questions, make observations, give feedback and provide suggestions, right? Then the product owner also presents the product backlogs, talk to the stakeholders to get feedback for upcoming sprints and about things related to the backlog. Now, this one sprint is complete. For the next sprint, what should be the prioritization? So the product owner has to speak with the stakeholders so that there is a good understanding, good handshake that what needs to be delivered and what is the priority in the given list. Then sprint retrospective happens. So after the sprint review, sprint retrospective happens. So during this meeting, what went well, like past mistakes, potential issues, what are the new ways to handle them which are required to be done correctly in the next iterations or next sprints needs to be identified. Data from found from here are incorporated when planning the new sprint. So it works like a lessons learned. What went well, what did not go well, what is that we did for those what did not go well. So what is that learning we have in these iterations? So how can we ensure that in the upcoming iterations the same mistakes will not repeat? So those can be discussed, documented, and then consider while moving to the next sprint. Then the increment is a workable output which is given to the stakeholders. So this is where the user actually sees that workable piece, working item, and then they give necessary feedback as well on the particular application piece or software piece. Then there is something called Scrum Board which is used during this flow of Scrum, right from product backlog to the creation of that increment. So let us look at what is a Scrum Board which is used during the Scrum practice. So Scrum Board is a physical or virtual tool that helps team to visualize items in the sprint backlog. So it helps in tracking what is being delivered, what is in progress, and what needs to be delivered further. So it shows all action items during the daily Scrum, helping keeping the team focused on tasks that need to be completion and the priorities of those. The Scrum board is usually present in a place that's accessible to all team members. It is a visual board, right? And can be physical, whiteboard and stickers or virtual software tools which can be used and displayed on the screen. So the Scrum board is divided into different slots like to do, in progress and done. So when new sprints are started, the existing board is reset and new Scrum board is created. So since it is visual system, I think it is taking the thought from Kanban. So visual system always works effective because the moment I know, I see something is put against my name that I need to complete this, it's quite obvious to me that I will put efforts to complete it. So it's a conscious effort what I will put. It works on my consciousness. So something which is not visible to me, it is not out of sight is out of mind. So I will not work on it. So there is a tendency to forget. So if I see it regularly, if I have that feeling or that vibes which comes to every individual, that everyone is having a visibility to it, something is pending against me. So I'm answerable. That consciously that comes to the mind. So and people start working on it, and closing of that will happen quickly. So everything is visible. There is nothing hidden. So look at the scenario. So when once it is explained, I think it's okay. Even though we messed up this time, we'll incorporate Scrum into our products. I am sure we will do a good job next time. But keep in mind, whenever change comes, it doesn't mean that I need to go and do Scrum practice. Never get into that decision. Understand what is the nature of change, what is that speed, how quickly you may require to do the change, and what is the impact of the change, how often this change may come up, You may know this from the lessons learned with the adopted practice and methodologies, and then decide, is the existing model or existing practice, whatever we are doing, is it okay, or should we really need to go and have a buy-in from the Scrum and entirely we organize ourselves to have a Scrum approach. So it is always advisable to go for a Scrum approach whenever there is a dynamics of quickly moving from left to right, from product backlog to that increment what needs to be created. So accomplishing that speed and involving the consumers regularly if it is feasible. So consumer and stakeholders may say they cannot involve, then you becoming agile will not make sense because they are not even giving the feedbacks. So active involvement of the team, the Scrum Master, the product owner, the business, the stakeholders, the consumers, very, very important. If they don't involve, so the deliverables cannot happen the way it is required. So active involvement, active collaboration of every stakeholders are essential. There should be collaboration and communication, the effective collaboration and communication which needs to be happening. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope this helped you to understand the basics of Scrum, how the Scrum helps in terms of addressing the organization challenges and problems. So bye for now. Until next video, take care. All the best.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.